Marriage not going as you hoped it would? Looking for a marriage tweak or just a productive conversation with your spouse? Stay tuned for an informative, edgy, and jam-packed episode of Recharge Your Marriage coming up right now. Hi, I'm Zev Halpern. Spend some focused time on your marriage, and perhaps you'll get the attention and intimacy you're looking for. There are ways to get your marriage out of stuck and into a place where the two of you can refresh the way you conduct your marriage and start doing the things that will most importantly help you enjoy your time together. That would sure be a change for the better, wouldn't it? We have a great show. We'll be featuring the It Takes Two Players Improvers and special guests, Rabbi Lyle Fishman of Or Kodesh Congregation in Chevy Chase and Reverend Brian Steve Lee from the New Shiloh Baptist Church in Baltimore. Today, we'll have a fascinating discussion with two clergymen. We'll be talking about meeting the challenges of marriage. Well, we got some mail, so let me share it with you. Laura writes from Germantown, I watch your show, but my husband is just not game for anything. We haven't even been married for too long, and all that hot, close, just stopped. Laura, takes two to tango, and before we call it quits, it's really important to shake it up a bit. People have needs, and they're going to find a way to meet them. You need to vocalize this in a calm, got your head on mindset speak, and be heard so you both are on the same page, which is a really good outcome. That's the mail for now. Out of all the tasks you're committed to, and I know you're busy, please invest and take some time updating your marriage relationship. Here's a way to get you focused and started on reclaiming your marriage. I want you to have a free gift, the 3-day Recharge Your Marriage Challenge. It's a chance for the two of you to try to do something doable, just the two of you, and see if you can meet the challenge together. To get free access, log on to rechargeshow.com and transform your marriage. Well, let's get to the Marriage Matters segment. Here's the It Takes Two Players to put us in the mood for this segment.
Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?
Uh-oh.
It's all right. No, we just have to talk about something.
Okay.
Money. Okay. I was doing the books yesterday, and I'm noticing on the credit card bill there's a lot. I think we're getting a little bit out of hand, and
Okay.
we just need to kind of refocus so that we can hit the long-term goals. We talked about this before.
I know.
And look, I don't want this to sound like trying to deprive us of anything. We both need what we need, but we have to get back on track, or else, the bigger goals aren't going to happen.
Are we really that bad?
I think if we continue the way we're going, it's that bad. That's why I'm bringing it up now. And okay,
Okay.
I'm sorry. It's just
Can we just... I don't want to have to talk about this.
We have to talk about it so that we can keep it on track. All right?
All right.
We talk about it once, we work it out.
Okay.
Have you ever just asked yourself why your marriage isn't working? The answer to that is daunting and way too broad and elusive. So let's narrow it down a bit. What's your marriage trouble spot? We can't change our whole marriage, but we can identify some of the trouble spots. It's difficult to be objective about marriage. It's hard to identify some of the trouble spots you've built up, resentments, and you hold on to them. They block you from seeing what's really going on the other side of the relationship. Two people locked in a way of being, perhaps even playing out some scenario you grew up with or some role that hides what you're really feeling, even wishing. You don't have to fix your whole marriage in one fell swoop. It's just not realistic to think you can fix everything that's the matter with your marriage. If you can, more power to you. You both could concentrate on fixing something together in a can-do mutual effort. Sometimes when you fix a corner of your marriage and you both are involved and engaged, this can serve as a new jumpstart platform for your marriage in general. A mutual effort on fixing something is an icebreaker. Wouldn't you agree? Icebreakers are good, and it's a good chance for things to budge, to move, to get the rust out. Even more important, it can lower the pile of things that might be troubling your marriage so you can see clear what's going on and what you have to do to move your marriage forward. You and your spouse got together and accomplished something together. That would be a little more like the reason you got together in the first place. In order to find the trouble spots in your marriage, you have to identify and see them. When you both can agree to address one thing and begin to resolve it, it can be the place where many marriages start to turn around. A little understanding and mutual listening can result in breaking that logjam and open up new communication channels that you just couldn't see because you were blocked and unable to see them. Well, I'm walking down the hall to the bedroom for the Sexpectations segment of the show. Please join me for some really useful insight and information about an intimate marriage. Hi, and welcome back. So I was at the pharmacy line, and since the magazines are there for a good reason, I couldn't help seeing all the magazine covers with in this issue topics like sex tonight, okay, wow, woohoo. Well, that gets people's attention. Or sex so hot, you'll fill in the blank. So I was encouraged to see this. People are doing it like rabbits, or wanting to do it some way, somehow. But what I didn't see in the headlines was married people's best hot sex after marriage. Sex after marriage to die for. Marriage sex that will blow your mind. Clearly, many married people are not having the sex life of their dreams. No kidding, Zev. Right? Take a look at this couple.
Hey, honey. We've got the whole house to ourselves tonight.
Yeah?
Want to fool around a little?
I'm watching the show.
You never want to fool around anymore.
What? Sure I do. I mean, didn't we just,
Weeks ago. What happened to that guy I used to know, that tiger?
the tiger's been domesticated, so...
Oh, come on. I need you.
All right. Well, what'd you have in mind?
Well, why don't we go upstairs and talk about it?
We could talk. Definitely.
Okay.
I was interviewing a sex educator on my podcast, which, by the way, made the iTunes podcast new and noteworthy list in its first week, so check it out. This sex educator said a couple's sex life is developmental. It changes over time. He also said our genitals are not timepieces. They lose sensation. And we have to be creative and take a little more time to get it all going. You know what I mean? Truthfully, that sounds like a good recommendation for all sexual relations. Take a little more time. That could never hurt. It's different because as the months and years go by, you're different emotionally and physically. So your needs are different. And we all know married life is not always lived in sync with our spouses. Ebbs and tides of marriages, a great year, a so-so year. Resilient couples recognize they've changed emotionally and sexually. In order for them to keep having various kinds of sex, they get creative and playful by communicating and talking about what they want and desire. Anticipating the satisfaction of some of their sexual desires motivates them to focus sex on the places and things each other prefers. If these are grantable desires, that can be mutually explored. Great. If not, find the place where the two of you can get that piston motion moving. It doesn't always have to end in anything, the big thing, because it is something big. Just trying is something big. It's just good to get back in the saddle again. And we're trying, touching, hugging, kissing, diving. Okay, some people are diving. I like it when you do this. Please do a little more of that. If you're worried about body image, close your eyes. Okay, no. Go out and get a red light bulb. And as a wonderful podcast guest, Melanie Davis, said, everything looks better through a red bulb on your bedside light. Give it a try. Or you can block off the visual side of each other with soft blindfolds. Hey, Zev, you're getting a little kinky. Perhaps, but stay with me here. Focus on the touch, not the body image, for a few relaxed moments of to die for fantasy. You two, or at least one of you, might really get it going. You know why they always tell people to close their eyes in the fairy tales? It allows us to not know the outcome, to anticipate, to be surprised, or a bit more open to a marriage tweak, to how it feels to be touched again. Focus on the sensation. Feel the sensation. Yes, I feel it. Whoosh. In the marriage pulse tonight, we welcome Rabbi Lyle Fishman and Reverend Brian Steve Lee. Rabbi Lyle Fishman has been the religious leader of Or Kodesh congregation in Chevy Chase since 1984. Rabbi Fishman is a member of the Rabbinical Assembly of America. In addition to serving the members of Or Kodesh, Rabbi Fishman has taken an active role in the Greater Washington Jewish community. He serves as a board member of the Greater Washington United Jewish Communities. He has taught Jewish text extensively at Or Kodesh and for the Foundation of Jewish Studies, and is a member of the Board of Governors of the New York Board of Rabbis. He graduated magna cum laude from Yale University with honors in his major, religious studies. After college, he attended the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, from which he received a master's degree in Hebrew literature and then rabbinical ordination. Rabbi Fishman has authored and published much throughout his career, and I have a feeling that's not going to stop. Also, Rabbi Fishman was a colleague of my father's for many years. Reverend Brian Steve Lee from the New Shiloh Baptist Church is an associate minister at the New Shiloh Baptist Church in Baltimore, Maryland. It's at the New Shiloh Baptist Church where he developed his unique ability to engage people of all walks of life and across all demographics. Reverend Steve Lee has success working with current and former professional athletes. His projects and charitable efforts include the Ray Lewis Foundation serving as executive director of Flow Nation Foundation with former Baltimore Orioles Mike Young, and launching the retail distribution of former NFL linebacker Adalius Thomas' Adalicious Marinade. Reverend Steve Lee's church, being just 2 streets away from what transpired on the streets of Baltimore recently, right up the road, continues to exercise strong leadership in his community. Welcome, Rabbi Fishman.
Thank you, Zev.
Welcome, Reverend Steve Lee.
Thank you for having me.
So, dialogue about marriage. Tonight we're going to dialogue a bit about marriage. A wife of a famous clergyman said the single most important characteristic in her marriage was her ability to forgive. What's your take on forgiveness in marriage? I thought it was very poignant of her when she brought that up.
I think she has a good point, but I think it's only one side. We can't forget what happens in our lives, and certainly not in our marriages. So forgiving is important, but I think remembering is also important. I like to talk to couples who are having trouble in their marriage, talk to them about, do you remember what were the features that prompted you to get married? Do you remember what it was to date your spouse? And I think by emphasizing that, perhaps they can, to use your words, recharge their marriage.
You give them a little Wayback Machine. They got to go back to the Wayback Machine and see the way it was at the beginning.
I think that going back and recalling those things can be helpful. Sometimes they come up with, oh yeah, we used to do this. Because lots of couples forget that they're spouses because they're parents or they're professionals or they're lots of other things, and they begin to take the marriage for granted.
What do you think, Reverend?
Well, I think forgiveness is very important. I can speak on, from my own personal experience. Times you're going to disagree with your spouse, of course, and the quicker you get to forgiveness, the easier it is to transition to solutions and moving forward. Of course, as the rabbi indicated, you don't want to forget because you learn from mistakes if that's what the case was. And so learning is always a good thing, be it especially in a marriage.
But forgiveness gets things moving again.
That's right.
Like
That's exactly right.
Sometimes there's a problem with forgiveness, though.
There's a few problems.
At least one that I'm thinking of now. Some couples keep score, and that's a big problem. You have to just let go. I forgave you, move on.
Throw that thing away with the notches and let's move on.
Right.
Or let's not. Let's make a decision of what we're going to do, which is a lot of what couples have a hard time doing. What would you say is the characteristics of marriage that stand the test of time? What are those characteristics, Rabbi?
I'd start with trust, I think.
I agree. Yeah.
Couples who can say to each other, I know that you have my back, are probably going to be successful and probably have been successful in marriage. It doesn't mean they haven't had bumps in the road, to change metaphors, but they are starting from a position of security, confidence in one another, and they can move forward very well in their marriage if they start there.
And Reverend Steve Lee?
And I'd agree with trust. Open communication kind of piggybacks on that thought. When I was courting my wife, who's now my wife now, there were certain things that I shared with her that may have been taboo, in some people's eyes. Why would you tell her that? But I felt the need to tell her because otherwise it may surface at some other point, which could create a whole bigger slew of problems. And of course, I didn't want that to happen.
Let's just get this out in the open.
Let's get it out
we
in the
don't
open.
Want and sneak attack.
And fascinating enough, she wound up doing the same thing.
But you started.
In this case, I started.
All right, it's a good policy. A lot of people don't follow it, and
You're right.
and what you say does transpire.
That's right.
On the other side. So the pressures of marriage can be huge: money, sex, in-laws. People are stretched thin. They don't know what to do. Do you have insights that might help people with those huge lists of stresses deal with their marriage, focus on their marriage?
One of my big philosophies is balance. I can relate to those things that you're referring to, with the exception of the in-laws. I don't have that issue. Her parents are deceased. But certainly, going back to your introduction, some of the things I'm involved in, and they all take their own significant amount of time, as well as being a a parent to a beautiful daughter, as well as being the husband that I intended to be when I exchanged vows with my wife. And so you have to find a way to balance those things. And occasionally you're going to find yourself, because it's human nature, you're going to find yourself tipping the scale one way or the other, the wrong way, and someone will be bothered by that. So it's always a careful thing to try and balance. Never easy, but it has to be.
I always thought they
least
should teach us
initiated.
juggling before we get married.
Yes.
You know, like a little juggling course, because you're going to need it.
Very much so.
How about you, Rabbi?
I think that's a very good point. I'm glad the Reverend mentioned it. I like to think of the wedding ring and suggesting to couples, put yourself inside of the wedding ring. And your work and your friends and your family, even your children, everybody else is outside.
That's right.
Until you agree to let them in. Because very frequently, perhaps I'm oversimplifying, but if one spouse says, we have to deal with this issue, and the other one says, I don't think that's part of it's not what we need to do, that's where real problems develop. When they agree to open up, to let illness in when it's necessary, or change of jobs, or something like that, then they're going to be more successful.
Because they're on the inside. It's between
together on the
two.
inside.
There's a strength. They know the strength of two. What do you feel? Both of you, you marry people, you consecrate their lives. You even give them permission, to have sexual relations, from the ceremonies that you do. What happens when you hear that one of them, or the outcome of some of them, are divorce? You hear it through the grapevine. What's it like for you when you hear that?
Well, if I know the couple well, it's painful, but certainly not as painful for me as it is for them. And I try then to ask them in a very sensitive way, do they want to talk about why the marriage is ending? Do they want to consider working on it again?
While being very new in ministry, I haven't had that experience yet in terms of a divorce at rate, through the result of a marriage that I've, been efficient to. And so, speaking from the experience of knowing people who have experienced divorce,
Absolutely.
then I will then just simply say it troubles me. I never want to see failure in a marriage. It's a union joined by God, what God has put together, let no man put asunder. And so that also includes the two parties involved. We think about outside sources that can ruin a marriage, but it could be the individuals in the marriage. And so I would hope that there's enough communication before we, before we get to the divorce stage that, prevents it. But
So we're talking about the divorce rate. What's your take on it? What's your take on the divorce rate? It's high. It's huge. Some people say it's 50%. Some people say it's 60%. What's your take on it?
It's high, and it's easier now to be divorced, and there isn't a stigma for a lot of people. But I think, as I said before, people need to think about why they're getting married. Lots of people today decide not to get married, in part because they're afraid of getting divorced. But people get driver's licenses, and they know that there's a possibility of difficulty in driving. They do all kinds of things, and there are no guarantees. People who love each other and who are committed to each other can get married, and the divorce rate doesn't affect them if they have those strong connections.
I believe divorce is indicative of the fact that there are not enough couples working hard, perhaps. Marriage is hard work. Those that go into it lightly will discover the hard work, and unfortunately, if you're not prepared by that, and speaking from our perspective from religious leadership, if you don't have a foundation, which I would hope is God first, it's going to be very hard to navigate that elsewise.
What do you think with all the, there's new distractions. We live in a world with avatars, porn. The temptations are huge and available everywhere. What do you think that the effect on marriage? Those things, different than 10 years ago even. You see a difference?
I think the availability of the distractions is greater, which means that people have to work harder and have to say, my marriage matters. I think that's the greater challenge now. The greater the distractions, the greater the effort that has to be put in.
And so consequently, you're not able to live your life in a bubble. I have friends who are married, and I can't even say whether or not they're happily married because, unfortunately, you don't really see enough of their,
Right.
how do I put this? Their activity, their interaction enough to gauge whether or not they're happy. You see them, and it's an opportunity to witness love, which is the foundation of a marriage, right? And if we're not seeing that, if there's not love being displayed, not only in the home, but publicly, it makes it hard to understand that. So.
And the big thing, we don't know what goes on behind
Of course
people's
not.
closed doors. Sometimes people wearing that smile, but we really just have no idea. But that's
right.
all we have time for tonight. And so to find out how to contact Rabbi Fishman, here's how to contact him. To find out how to contact Reverend Steve Lee, here's how to contact him. To find out more about the It Takes Two players, contact Chris Pennick. I invite you to find out more about how I can help you through my signature program, Recharge Your Marriage Now. Enrich your marital skills, reconnect for a deeper, more fulfilling relationship. Spice up that marriage and feel the love again. Here's how to find me at rechargeyourmarriagenow.com. Follow me on Twitter, like my Facebook page, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please join my LinkedIn group, How to Recharge Your Marriage, and tune in to my new racy podcast for couples, Recharge Your Marriage Podcast Show, which you can download for free from iTunes. And take the 3-day recharge challenge. It's absolutely free. It's something you two can try on your own with a structure and move your marriage forward. And finally, hug, kiss, touch, cuddle, laugh a little, smile. Be kind to those you meet. We're all fighting a great battle. We're all in need of some loving kindness. I'm Zev Halpern. See you next time for Recharge Your Marriage.